Welcome, everybody, to episode number 56 of the Building the Village podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Brandon W. Jones, your Chief Village Building Strategist, and I'm excited to have you all join us again today. As I said in the last episode, I want episode 56 to be a continuation of the conversation that we were having in episode 55 about the art of showing up. But before we get into today's conversation, let me just welcome all the new villagers today to the podcast. I'm happy that you're joining us. If you get something out of this episode, please make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it from. And if you're a regular, make sure you continue doing what you're doing by liking, commenting, and subscribing as well. And also make sure you share the episodes with your family, your friends, that coworker that's getting on your nerves and you think they could learn from this. Make sure they get this episode too. I'm going to start today's episode with the question. So if you're a coach, if you're a manager, a supervisor, team leader, pastor, mentor, anybody that's responsible for leading people, I need you to lean in closely for this episode today, okay? I want to ask you a question. When was the last time you actually showed up for your people? Take a second and think about that. When was the last time you actually showed up for your people? Now, I'm not just talking about a quick text message or clicking like on their social media photos or walking by their office and saying good morning, or if you're a coach, when they walk by you, just greeting you. I'm not talking about those little quick moments like that. I really want you to think, when is the last time you genuinely pulled up and showed up for the people under your leadership, or the people that you consider to be part of your village? When's the last time you pulled up and showed up for them? When was the last time you were in the room and you weren't locked in on your phone or answering emails, but you were actively engaged and present where you were? When was the last time you showed up to sit in the audience at a play from one of your staff members' kids? Or when's the last time you went to the graduation or celebration? When was the last time you were there when someone was grieving? The reason I'm asking these questions is because there's something that I've learned over the years that's very powerful when it comes to people. People, as Maya Angelou said, don't remember everything you say, but they will remember how you made them feel. And I don't know about you all, but I know for a fact that when presence is involved, presence evokes certain feelings. You don't always have to have words. You don't always have to come bearing gifts. But in the village, we need people who understand the power of presence, because people will remember when you showed up. And so again, as I said earlier, in the last episode of the podcast, we talked a lot about the art of showing up. And I gave you 3 key points. We talked about being able to pull up, speak up, and then also hang out. But today, I want to extend that conversation, and I want to talk about the other side of that conversation. I want to talk about what happens when the village doesn't show up. I mean, and that's something that we have to think about, because when you look at our world, when you look at our communities, when you look at what's going on, not just in the United States, but globally, a lot of things can be attributed to the fact that the village just stopped showing up. When you think about what's going on in our schools, or when you think about what's happening with our kids, a lot can be connected to the village not being present. And one of the other questions I would ask is, why is it so hard for people to show up today? I'm in conversations all the time with people, and they're constantly saying that it feels like things have changed and we're drifting and we're losing the art of connection, and we've forgotten how to actually connect, and we've actually forgotten how to be neighborly. We've forgotten how to be friendly without it feeling fake and inauthentic. And then when you really think about that, what happens to the leaders, the coaches, and the supervisors and mentors who don't have that skill set, or are being raised in a generation where they don't know those things? And so I want to spend some time talking about the consequences or the side effects of what happens when we don't show up. And so my first area that I want to focus on is why we're struggling. Why we're struggling to show up. And I think one of the big reasons we're struggling to show up is because we've just gotten too busy. Busyness is dominating all of our lives. I don't care who you're talking to or when you're talking to them. It just seems like people are so much more busier today than in previous years. When you're talking to teenagers, they may have AAU tournaments and games that they've got to attend. Or if you're talking to parents, they're rushing to get home so that they can get dinner made, or they're trying to just make it through the day and dealing with the commute and making sure that they're not late picking up their kid. There's a whole plethora of reasons why people feel so busy. And then there's also this fear of being awkward. And I don't know where we got this mindset that everything has to be perfect, but somewhere along the lines, we forgot that things have to start off kind of clunky and awkward at first in order to get them to where we want them to be. But we've become so microwaved in wanting everything with instant gratification that we're afraid of awkwardness, and so much so that a lot of our teenagers won't interact with each other. You could be in a room full of kids and teenagers and high school students, and they can go to the same high school, and you can ask them, how many of you struggle with math? And half the room raises their hand saying that they struggle with math, and the other half raises their hand that says that they're good in math, and the two won't connect. And some of them will go to the exact same school, have the exact same teacher, but won't take the time to say, hey, you said you're good at that. Hey, can we connect? Can we study together? Because we're afraid of being awkward. And then, of course, there's the very real possibility that we're all just emotionally exhausted. Listen, it's not missed on me that, we did come through a pandemic, and we're still rocking and reeling from that in multiple ways, depending on where you are at this time. But also, we're emotionally exhausted because, I was just talking to someone a few minutes ago and saying how it's already spring, it's March, spring break, and the academic year is already almost done. And if you're the parent of a high school senior, you've got prom coming up. You've got graduation to get ready for. You've got to help your child get ready for college or whatever their post-high school option is. And you're just emotionally exhausted because you're on this roller coaster of I'm happy and oh my gosh, I'm sad, I'm happy. It happens. And then there's also another thing that I'm noticing that is driving this struggle to connect is the over spiritualization of independence. And I don't know if it's an over spiritualization as much as it's a glamorization of independence, or I'm going to grind, or I got to thug it out, or I got to tough it out, and I got to handle business on my own. Independence has its place. As parents, we want our kids to be independent, but the glamorization of it and this elevation of independence also keeps us from asking for the help that we might need at times. And in the village, when we're surrounded by a bunch of independent people, you can see why we're struggling to connect and communicate. And also why we're struggling to pull up for each other. And then, of course, there's this nebulous concept of digital connection replacing actual physical community. And I don't think there's anything wrong with digital connection. In fact, I'm a part of Facebook groups. I'm a part of different digital groups here in the city that I live in. And I'm also a part of gaming communities. And I think that those communities have their place. But when we replace physical connection with that, we're really missing out on something. And so I want to encourage us to think about the things in our own lives. What are some things that are going on in your life right now that are keeping you from being able to connect with the people that you call your village? Those people who have shown up for you, who do show up for you, who've been present, but you're not able to show up for them for whatever reason. I want you to take some time and think about that. But I also want to reframe this just a little bit. Showing up is not about perfection. It's okay if it's awkward. It's okay if we're tired when we have to show up. It's okay if it doesn't go well the first time. It's not about perfection. It's about the intention. It's about that ministry of presence, if you will. It's about what's the heart and meaning behind why we're present. And I think if we're more aware of that, and if we give ourselves the space and time to show up for each other, then I really do think that we'll get over those things that hinder us and have been hindering us from making meaningful connection in the village. Now, here's the main thing that I want to talk about, and I need you to lean in close on this section, okay? There are costs to not showing up. We pay a steep price when we fail to show up for one another in the village. One of the things that happens when we fail to show up is loneliness grows and increases. Now, you all have heard me talk about the loneliness epidemic going on in countries like Japan, but now here in the United States, men are reporting higher rates of loneliness. And despite how you might feel about that, because of the different things that people may or may not believe about men and whether or not they deserve it and all that, I've seen a lot of things like that out there. No one deserves to feel lonely, in my opinion. I don't think anyone deserves that feeling. I think that there are people that enjoy isolation a little bit, but we're not meant to remain that way in a perpetual state. And when we fail to check in on people, when we fail to pick up the phone and call and just say, hey, I was thinking about you. Hey, we're barbecuing today. You want to come over? Do you have dinner plans? Loneliness can increase when we fail to show up. And that's not just with other people. Think about the things that make you feel lonely. When you didn't get invited to the dinner party, when you didn't get invited to the graduation celebration, or when all the neighbors are outside on the patio gathered and you didn't get that invite and nobody came and knocked on your door. Loneliness can increase in situations like that. And then not only does loneliness increase, trust starts to erode. When we're in a village, when we've made a decision that we're going to intentionally assemble and come together and we're going to be present in each other's lives, and we're not just going to be there for the big moments, we're going to show up in the small. If all of a sudden we're failing to do that, now all of a sudden we wonder whether we can trust this particular person in the village or whether we can trust this particular group of villagers. And if you're not careful, you'll look around and then you'll start mistrusting people despite the intent. And we don't want to do that. And then when trust erodes, then the community starts to fall apart. The whole point of this podcast is building the village, not fragmenting, destroying, or separating the village. Yes, are there times when we might need to disassociate ourselves from individuals? Sure. But what I'm mostly talking about every episode that we do of this podcast is bringing communities and people together. And so if we're not careful, I know I keep saying that, if we're not careful, our communities can start to fragment and split, and that slow drifting starts to happen. And then the next thing you know, we'll be miles apart and won't know how it happened. Here's the last thing. People will stop feeling seen, and then they'll start feeling unsupported. Let me say that again. People will start to feel unseen and unsupported. My pastor, Galen Clark, says it like this. He says that everyone's walking around with a sign on their forehead that says, "Make me feel like I matter." And the first time I heard that, I thought, no, because some people like to isolate and some people don't want attention. But the truth of the matter is, you don't want to interact with somebody and walk out of their presence every single time and not feel like you matter when you're in the conversation with them. The things that you remember about an interaction with people or an interaction with the group or as part of the village, you're going to remember how people made you feel. And another quote my pastor likes to quote from Gary Smalley: life is relationships. The rest is just details. And if we're not investing in the relationships, the details can get in the way sometimes. And so I want to encourage everybody who's listening to this episode. We want the village to be a reality for everybody, not just a concept. We want the village to be a reality, because here's the thing. If the village is real, then that means that no one's left behind. That means that no one walks alone. Nobody is existing in isolation. When I see trash in front of my neighbor's house, I'm going to pick it up because me picking up that trash makes the neighborhood look good. Yeah, it wasn't mine, but let me pick that up because this is still our community. This is our neighborhood. This is our village. And I want you all to think about that as you're planning, as you're thinking about the holidays, as you're thinking about how you're going to apply this lesson. I'd like for you to send me a message. I'd like for you to comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave me a comment in the comment section about one way that you can apply this. If you're tuning in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're getting your podcast from, leave me a comment because I'd love to see and hear how you all are applying this village building concept, because we're building better villages one villager at a time. And so take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll talk again soon. Peace. Hey, everybody, if you like today's episode, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. And then also go to my link tree at B Jones Speaks. You can also follow me on Instagram at B Jones Speaks. And if you're not already doing so, make sure that you're subscribing on YouTube at, you guessed it, B Jones Speaks. See you next time.